Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video, we're going to be looking at Cecile and Marie Grace's mystery. So there's just three. There's one for each of them, and there's one of them together. So the first one is Marie Grace's, which is the hidden gold. So in this one, she's on a steamboat with her father, and they're on their way to visit friends up in Philadelphia, which is where her father is from. And a young girl is brought on, comes on board. Her father had died, and apparently he had been out with the California gold rush, and he hid his gold. Their family is very poor. So she ends up rooming with Marie Grace, and she's trying to find her father's gold, and he left her a book. So it's in her trunk. They have to kind of sneak down. There's other people who realize that her father had found a bunch of gold. And so it's the course of the mystery is them trying to find where her father's gold is and who's trying to steal it. So they do eventually find a man who's a gambler who's lost a bunch of money. And they end up going through a book of fairy tales. So they go, it's a kind of interesting adventure. And eventually her father, second girl's father, he was a goldsmith, or just a regular smith. He turned the gold that he had, because we're not talking gold bars here. We're talking miner's gold, which is chunks and flakes and all sorts of things. And then turned them into cooking materials and painted them black to hide them. So that's what they end up finding. Her father, one of the riddles was, I think it was Jack and Jill went up the hill to catch a pail of water. Or, actually, no, I think the clue was, wrong one. But that might have been part of it. And talking about Little Miss Muffet and the spider, which is something they, kind of a stand they used to put over a cooking fire. Now, her father had died, so she's able to, that's the course of kind of the mystery there, where they find out where the gold was and how poor her family was, and they were going to be separated. So, and I think their mother died of fever or something, and they were up in Pennsylvania. So that's that story. The next mystery is the mystery of Cecile, which is the camo necklace. So in this one, Cecile's out at a fair, and she had borrowed her aunt's camo necklace, and I don't have one on me. They're like it has a charm on it that's like half a woman's face kind of thing in silhouette. So it was very, very popular for years. I think I have a couple from my great aunt. But who knows, is not that old, but nonetheless. She loses it, and she's trying to find it. And over the course of she's looking at different people, there's a lot of history that was brought into this one specifically, where her brother is nearly taken by slavers because he looks similar to a runaway slave, and that scares them. How you find out about the Maroons, who were in fact real people. They were escaped slaves who were living in the swamps. And just kind of, you feel the black-white divide that was becoming more prominent in New Orleans and Louisiana in general at this time. So this is the 1850s, the middle of the 1850s. The Civil War starts about maybe 9-10 years later. So, and of course, compared to the Spanish and the French, the English, and by way of the Americans, have a very different view on the large population of free blacks in New Orleans. They don't like it. And even at this time, New Orleans was the biggest slave market in the country, despite also having one of the biggest free people of color population as well. So this is kind of interesting. She does eventually find that, or who the heck stole it. I think it was a, oh, I don't know. in fact, I can't even remember who the heck it was who ended up stealing the necklace. It was one of the Maroons, but they intended to give it back to her. And what does end up happening is the one of the best hairdressers in town, her sister's enslaved. And she's been trying to buy her back, but again, because the laws had changed, she hadn't been able to. So, in fact, nope, all right, wrong story. In fact, no, this does have to do with the Maroons. It does have to do with the hairdresser. But the hairdresser is, in fact, no, that's what it is. She's an escaped slave. And she has to get away, and they get the Maroons, and the Maroons come and help her, and she's able to disappear. So, just because she's being looked for. So that's, again, this one, you really do see something that isn't as evident in a lot of the other stories of that big, the changing of the laws and how things drastically changed when the Louisiana Purchase happened in New Orleans. Because again, the French and the Spanish had a lot of ways for people of African descent to gain their freedom. And you had a lot of people who came over from the Haitian Revolution, which actually it kind of happened right around that time. So, but again, the Americans, who were mostly, again, English, particularly obviously the Southerners, did not like them. And the Protestants, of course, the majority of the people, particularly the people of color, the majority of the people who'd been in New Orleans forever, were Catholic, because the French and the Spanish were Catholic. And of course, this is still the time where the British do not like the Pope. They do not like Catholics. The anti-Catholic sentiment, I don't think it's completely gone. It really hasn't. The United States has 2 Catholic presidents. One was Kennedy, one was Biden. They still don't like Catholics. But yeah, you really see that in this one. And yes, it was the Maroons who stole her necklace, but they were going to give it back because they realized how valuable it was to her. So, and then the last one is let me find it here, the Haunted Opera. So what's happening here is a French opera, a Paris opera troupe comes to town, and this is after the rest of the books have taken place. I think all 3 of them have, because Marie Grace's their voice teacher is Marie Grace's aunt, so it's after her uncle had married her because she worked at the opera house and she taught music. So she's offered a spot in this opera because a lot of their people got sick on the way over. And so eventually there's a lot of theft going on, and you do see a little bit at one point she was one of the seamstresses in town. She's the one who her sister was escaping and they had to escape north. So she had to leave. So I don't know if they mention the Underground Railroad, but they do escape with her sister, because her sister's the escaped slave, not her. So, but they do find out that it was one of the diva, which is not the term. It was the term of the, not the way we use it now. It's literally a opera term for the lead singer. Her crown for this production was stolen. Turns out the crown was stolen by one of the men who loved her, who was losing his hearing, and he thought it would be better by the time they got to St. Louis, and so he wanted to stop it. And a lot of it is, at first, the blame is being put on Marie Grace's aunt, who's, for some reason, I cannot even remember her name. It starts with an O. I keep wanting to say Olympia, but that's not it, and it's French. But Marie Grace is doing a lot of this on her own. You see a little bit of Cecile, which is the reason I think this is mostly Marie Grace's story. So it is very interesting and you learn a lot about the opera in New Orleans, and Marie Grace is staying with her aunt because her father's dealing with sickness on a ship. I don't think it specifies what it is. It could be anything. From probably cholera or something, dysentery or something. But nonetheless, so she's doing a lot of this on her own. She's finding out there have been various curses, various different blaming, but it's an interesting mystery. But again, you're seeing an interesting side to New Orleans at the time, where you had the traveling operas and you kind of had what was going on in the opera houses and everything and all that was involved. So those are the three mysteries. They're really interesting. I enjoy their mysteries. So, but particularly the second one really gives you more of an in-depth look than any of the books on what is going on in New Orleans at the time. So that is it for this review. This is the last set of books that are directly involving Cecile and Marie Grace. I will be finishing up hopefully today for the rest of Cecile and Marie Grace, just covering a few more things on the Underground Railroad before moving on to Kirsten and then Addie and then Samantha. So we will jump. Maybe Kirsten's in Minnesota right around the same time as Cecile and Marie Grace. And Addie's about 10 years later, so she's during the Civil War. And then Samantha jumps all the way into the 1900s. So if you like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thank you.